Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the btspodcasttz. And today I'm coming with you with a very debated topic. I'm sure a topic that all of you at one point or another, it has been a discussion in many households, and this is the generational clash. I know you're asking yourself, ini nini, what is it about? Now, before I get into it, as always, as is the norm, I'm your host, Makida Dallas, and I'll be joined by my guest, who you've seen in our last two episodes. We had a very interesting topic on that. If you haven't seen it, just scroll down, and it will be one of our most. It's one of our most viewed episodes. And without further ado, allow me to introduce our guest. Karibu Tracy.
Thank you. Hi, guys. My name is Tracy Humplick, as Makida rightfully said. And if you don't know me by now, please watch the previous episode. It's very interesting.
All right, so let's dive into our topic: generational clash, the battle of millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, and how these individual groups are influencing the Tanzanian culture or the norm. So let's talk about these groups so that kwa ambaye najua wengi tutakuwa tunazijua, lakini it is nice to touch on them again. Right?
Yeah.
Tracy, Gen X, Millennials,
Gen Z.
na Gen Z.
Yeah.
Bracket them.
Well, I think I'll use miaka.
Yes.
So Gen X, kama sikosei, ni wale waliozaliwa around the 70s to the 80s.
Yeah, correct.
Millennials follows, I think from 1981 mpaka 1996. And then Gen Z is 97 mpaka 2012 kama sikosei. Now these different groups, kwa uelewa wangu, ni kwamba they've been separated by 10 years kama sikosei. So yeah, if I was to cluster them, I would cluster them based on miaka waliozaliwa. But then you can also cluster them based on characteristics zao, personalities zao, na the time that the environment that they grew up in in the society. So
Okay, I fall into a millennial. So what's the most, it can be anything. What's the most fun or something that has caught your mind, either in the millennial space or the Gen Z space or the Gen X space? Yani kitu gani ambacho mpaka leo ukikumbuka unacheka?
For all the three?
For anyone, you can pick three. Any of them.
Okay, so since you've already assigned yourself a group, mimi hapa, I'm a millennial, lakini I identify as a Gen Z. It's allowed. So kitu ambacho I think I would say ni millennial, because millennial wako they're like the bridge between before the internet and then internet ilivyokuja. Yani we were lucky to experience both worlds, before the internet and after. So I think the funniest thing for millennials is yani ile multiple, we have like an identity crisis flani. Yani on one side tunajua maisha yalivyokuwa zamani before the internet, and then when the internet came, we had to try and adapt, evolve, and so like things like is it called MySpace? Before Facebook ya leo, there was another one. Was it High Five?
Kuna High Five,
MySpace. Kipindi kile the digital world ilikuwa very new, yani like even the phones we were using, like unakumbuka ule mlipuko wa BlackBerry, like check BBM, yani we were so proud to call out the fact that we were on these platforms. Na kipindi kile like ulikuwa ukitoka, like when you go out, unapiga picha kama 100, and then all of them unazi-upload, like whether they are good or not, unazi-upload. So like we have that habit, yeah. Yani we are trying to constantly balance between the digital world and before the digital world. We are the number one advocates for work-life balance.
I
somehow
feel seen.
somehow we never get it. But we are always, yani tuko kwenye ile kama ingekuwa ni scale, tuko pale, uneka a stone on both sides, we're there constantly. Yani we are trying to balance all our life. We are trying to balance between looking mature and being with the young and trendy. Yani tuko pale, ndo maana ndo maana mara nyingi tukiinteract na Gen Z, we are constantly trying to show them we are also cool. You know. But then when we're with Gen X, we're trying to show them we are not as, you know, young and dumb
like Gen Z.
Gen Z. Yani tuko pale, we're like the middle child, tuseme. So I think for me, millennial ndo kuna vitu vingi vya ku point out that are quite, yeah.
For me, it's the peace sign.
Oh my
god, I can't get. It's like such a millennial thing. The pause before a video and the peace sign. I tried getting rid of it. I don't know. It's like I see a camera automatically.
There's this video in a trend site on Instagram where, like, before posing a picture, the millennial and a struggle, like trying to fight.
Combine our elderly age will be like bringing. So that's such a thing, and it's very telling.
Yeah.
More than any ukiwa generation nyingine, you're like such a millennial.
Yeah.
So that's fun for me. Yeah. All right. I want us to talk about the shift in habits. We can start with careers, go into relationships. Into careers, what would you say has been there's been a shift, and that's my personal take. I think landscape imebadilika sana. Our grandfathers would turn in their graves seeing how far Gen Z and Gen Alpha are at. How would you talk about the career evolvement?
So nakubaliana nawe, there's been a huge shift. Starting with kipindi cha Gen X. I think Gen X had the strongest work ethic out of all generations, because kipindi kile, yani there was emphasis on working hard. Yani you needed to work hard, you needed to show up on time, you needed to finish on your tasks kama ulivyosema. There was accountability and consequences. There was also this emphasis on loyalty. Yani unakuta Gen X wengi ukiwaongelesha, they've worked at one place for like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. There's that work ethic ambayo I feel Gen X wali cultivate very strongly. They also valued hierarchy. Yani bosi ni bosi. Bosi hawezi kukosolewa. Yani hawezi kukosolewa, and then also there was a way you had to behave based on the hierarchy where you fall. Then comes millennial. Sasa sisi millennial, can't believe I'm saying sisi millennial. Millennial, when it comes to career, like I said, we are in that stage of balance. We are trying to be hardworking, but we're also thinking my sanity matters. You know, we are the biggest advocates for mental health and work-life balance, because even in our time, we grew up in a point where we saw how hardworking our parents were. But the digital revolution showed us kwamba there are certain things you can do an easier way. So lazima ufanye the hard way kama enzi za your parents. So it opened up our minds to thinking about freeing up time to do things that we actually love and care about. That's why work-life balance for us is like a big deal. Then millennials, pia, we have this thing. We're very passive-aggressive. Yani, because we're trying to meet both sides of our identity, we're trying to be aggressive like the previous generation, but we also don't want to come off like we are
like a rebel,
like we have this passive aggressive flani, and most of us right now this year utakuta tuko kwenye leadership roles, wengi millennials wengi wako kwenye leadership roles. Kwa it comes out even in how they lead the team. Unakuta anacheka na wewe, they can even party with you mpaka asubuhi lakini 8 am yuko ofisini na anakuuliza where are we with. Yani, and then sometimes we can even give backhanded comments like, oh, this isn't done yet, but you thought it was fine kwenda 12:45. You know, like, we were together, but you didn't think about your tasks. So we have this passive aggressiveness about us, even with our leaders. Like, hatukubaliani na kila kitu anachokisema, lakini bado tuna ule uoga wa the previous generation kwamba bosi ni bosi. Kwa hiyo ni, yeah. And we are the biggest side hustlers. Yani, we value employment for stability, but we know that you cannot make the money you want to make with just the job. Kwa most of us unakuta tuna side hustle. It could be a shop, unajua, it could be consultancies, unauza nguo, viatu, nini. But yani ile concept ya kuwa na
kazi tu hapana, una kazi na lazima side hustle.
And it's because even during our time, the industrial revolution time, the economy ili transform where entrepreneurs started winning in life. So we were exposed to that shift. Because saivi we are okay being employed because you need the security of regular income, but at the same time you're thinking ahead. I'm going to have to grow my wealth. We are biggest entrepreneur supporters. Gen Z wamezaliwa kipindi cha a fully digital world. Yani tangia azaliwe, we are using smartphones, we have smart TVs, you know, kupiga simu, it's like instant. Kuingia social media and it takes you 5 minutes to open an account. If you have an opinion, you can post it. If you want to make friends, so lazima wawepo Tanzania. Yani kuna ile instant gratification flani. Yani Gen Z amezaliwa kwenye a world where if they want something, they can get it. Hapo. They don't really need to work so hard like Gen X.
And they feel they don't believe in working hard at all.
Kabisa. And it's because of that exposure to instant gratification. And to some extent wazazi wanachangia kwenye hicho kitu. Because unakuta wazazi wao ni wale millennial, wako busy. Anampa tablet. You know? Mtoto hajui hata kucheza au ku make friends in real life, lakini mtandaoni unakuta ana followers kama milioni. Kwa hiyo ame grow up thinking making friends easy. Sijui, I'm feeling sad, I want to be happy, easy. I'm bored, I want entertainment, easy. Yani kila kitu kimekuja kiurahisi, and that's how they go to the world even after shule, wakianza internships, wanafanya mwezi mmoja and they're like, it's giving. So I would say we have shifted from Gen X era where you had to wake up early, you had to be in the office on time, unachapa kazi kweli, to balance between kuchapa kazi na kufanya side hustle. To Gen Z where it's like the world is on your hands. Why are you trying so hard? You know, if you're not feeling this place, there's opportunities elsewhere. So yeah, work ethic imebadilika. Our view of how to make money imebadilika.
And I feel like what's also that sets a pace whereby Gen X were more led by fear. Fear of security, tomorrow. So they were based off a template. Ilikuwa go to a college, study, you're off. Get a good job, provide for your family. The dream was happy retirement. And then comes millennials and they're like, not really, but I respect the values you've still instilled in me. But we're scared to jump.
We don't want to fully commit to this side because kuna opportunities on the other side.
Now you find that you're not living to your full capabilities, because lazima utakuwa strong in one area. Kwa unakuta ndo hapa upo katikati, you're not sure. Gen Z on the other hand, do you feel they're misunderstood?
Yes. I believe Gen Zs are very misunderstood. Like I said earlier, Gen Zs wame grow up kwenye environment ambayo kila kitu ni instant. So expecting them to want that long-term gratification is a bit unrealistic. Think about it this way. If you're in a marathon, both of you are running 5 kilometers. Sindio? Wewe kipindi chako, kabla uanze kukimbia, lazima uende ukanunue the sneakers and the socks, you wear them, and then you wait for the nani yule to signal kwamba marathon imeanza ndo ukimbie. Sindio? Wewe ni Gen X. Millennial amekuwa in a time where you are given the socks and nanis hapo, unavaa hapo, you wait for the nini signal. But you have the option of waiting mpaka Gen X waanze na wewe ndo uanze kukimbia. And you have the option. Gen Z anajua, ana uwezo wa kusema ile finish line isogezwe. You see the difference? Yani amekuwa in a world where what you call the finish line is not what they call the finish line. You're both running a marathon. Yani they make things happen. They set their own rules in their own terms. Kwa hiyo wakija kwenye dunia ya sasa hivi, especially in Tanzania, yani tuko mbali in the terms of offering Gen Z the life they actually would thrive in. Kiteknolojia bado hatupo huko. You know, if you look at Gen Zs in the global side, wana thrive because the infrastructure allows them to thrive. Hapa Tanzania bado sana. While when it comes to careers, the types of jobs that are out there globally, hapa Tanzania bado hatujazi incorporate kwenye organizations. Ndio maana unakuta Gen Z wengi wanatafutaga kazi ambazo ni remote jobs, remote working. Yani jobs ambazo so lazima awe hapa Tanzania. Anaweza kawa ana work for like Google, the tech companies sana. Hasa ukimpeka Gen Z kwenye kampuni kama benki, ana struggle because banks are fixated on structure, yes. And they are like that because of the nature of their business. Lakini ukimpeka huyo Gen Z same kama Google, ana thrive. So I think they're misunderstood in the sense that tumewaleta kwenye template and they don't fit in that template, and we don't want to acknowledge that they don't fit in that template. We blame them when we look for ways to make them feel like they are the problem. Although there's the flip side. Kuna baadhi wana take advantage of the fact that Gen Zs are viewed a certain way. Yani kuna wengine ni wavivu. Yani leave aside their generation, wao wenyewe, just them ni wavivu. And it's because they're used to being given everything. Wale ndo wanaharibu for the rest. You know, it even applies to millennials. Yani the few people that don't represent the generation vizuri wanakuja kuharibu kwa wengine.
Suddenly it is a notion, everybody assume.
Yeah, and that's why there is these generational clashes, because we're trying so hard kujidefine na kujiweka kwenye group fulani. Lakini in reality, you are not one or the other. Yani imetokea tu umezaliwa in that generation, but you can actually change. Ndio maana mimi earlier I said I was born into the millennial era, but I identify as a Gen Z. Yani kuna baadhi ya vitu Gen Z wanaamini na mimi nakubaliana nao.
Yeah. Do you feel like this will create a culture shift? And because if society has to conform to fit their guardrails, then there won't be guardrails, in a sense of a bank is a bank. It will still have structures. But then you have a Gen Z who's not conforming. For a system to change, it's like you're changing your DNA. I can start my own business. There's a way that I have this DNA. But Gen Z anakuja, yeye ndo anakufundisha wewe sasa. Do you feel I feel there's a clash.
Uh-huh.
How can that be handled better, for lack of a better word? How do we then tap into their mindset to get the most
Out
value
of
from them? Yeah.
I think I kind of disagree to some extent. Let's talk about banks. Banks have been forced to change because of the Gen Z era. Think about it. CRDB Bank unaoijua ya zamani na ya leo, they're far from being the same. Sasa hivi there's a huge focus on money at the tip of your hands. Right? Which means mobile banking is critical. Sasa hivi so lazima uwe na physical card. Zamani you needed a physical card, which meant you needed to go to a physical branch to talk to a person. Sasa hivi you can open an account on your phone, you can transact on your phone. You can even have a debit card virtually created on your phone. I agree that to some extent certain things might not change the DNA, lakini I think infrastructure lazima itakuja kubadilika zaidi. Sasa hivi kuna things like artificial intelligence. You know, in other countries the banks have embraced AI to an extent where the products they sell Makida are not the same products they sell Tracy. Because ile AI inajua Makida is more interested in, you know, for instance, even the promotions that they're now doing. Zamani ulikuwa promotion nyingi zilikuwa based on tangible things. Labda unashinda TV, unashinda hela. You know, sasa hivi they are pegged on experiences. You win a free trip to Europe. They're slowly changing. So I think the right way to go about it is to try and tap into the strengths of Gen Z. And in my opinion, strengths of Gen Z is they're very innovative thinkers. Yani ataangalia hii task ambao wewe umeifanya miaka yako yote, atatafuta an easier way to do it.
You know why?
And an even better way to do it.
Yes, because they don't want to spend a lot of time.
Because of that instant gratification, it forces them to think innovatively. A Gen Z will not do something they don't believe in. Kwa mfano, hizi agendas the sustainability goals, environmental impact, social justice, vitu kama hivi, they actually care about them. Kwa hiyo unakuta wanataka kufanya kazi na labda Apple because Apple is focused on reducing their carbon footprint.
Opportunities
they
that have a
care
bigger
about
cause.
those things that matter globally. Kwa Gen Z ana uwezo mkubwa wa kugrow kwenye role ambayo itampeleka mbali at a shorter time because they care about they are moving with the trend, while sisi hapa we are kidogo yani hatu embrace hivi vitu haraka, so we miss opportunities. To some content creation is a very good example. A lot of the content creators wali come up from the Gen Z. Wao ndo walikaa chini wakasema hivi kumbe I can pick up my phone, film content and make money out of it. Who in their Gen X and millennial era would have thought of that? It's only now that they've exposed us to that. Now you are seeing millennials are doing podcasts. Millennials are now doing content creation. Now all of a sudden something a Gen Z thought of is giving us a benefit. So I think we should sit down and put our ego aside, put our bias pembeni, and then tukae nao tuangalie what are their strengths. Maybe I work with Gen Zs in my team, and one thing I'll say is they force you to want to change. Yani we mwenyewe unajikuta unaanza kuangalia like kumbe this thing. One of them showed me tulikuwa kwenye meeting, we were writing, like we were brainstorming, and then maybe I like notebook. You can give me a tablet, but I'll always write on a notebook. So I was writing my notes, and then this member of my team who falls under Gen Z category alitakiwa create minutes based on notes za watu wote. So I, in my millennial way of thinking, nilimpa muda wa siku 2 because I was thinking ataenda kuangalia notes zote, atazitype.
Kumbe ana AI.
By the end of the day alikuwa kashatuma hizo minutes and they were very well structured. And I was like, I did not see this person typing anything. Na meeting imeisha saa 10, katuma saa 12. So I had to call him. I was like, how did you do this? He showed me his software. He was like, you know what I did? I was like, I took a picture of your notes. I uploaded it pale. It dictated, typed, and structured it for me. I just gave it a prompt. Kwa hiyo alifanya kitu ambacho nilikuwa nimempa cha kufanya in 2 days, in 2 hours. Already you are thinking, damn, productivity on steroids. Asa imagine mimi hapa nisingeenda kumuuliza, nisingejua kwamba that's possible. Right?
You've still been compiling.
And then with the same example, it also fights back ile mentality kwamba Gen Z ni wavivu. Because this guy actually found a way to be more productive. He could have chosen to wait for 2 days because I gave him 2 days. So I think they are misunderstood, and I think the best way to make it productive ni kutap into strengths zao and to help them because they do have weaknesses, to be honest. Yeah. There are areas where we can help them, we can mentor them, we can train them. Yeah.
What's interesting is that when you look at these 3 different age groups, they each have something that feeds into the other. I feel Gen Z have found a way to do something quicker, faster.
Yeah.
Because lack of a better word, I'm too lazy to do this. There must be when you're lazy to do something, you always think there's got to be a quicker solution. Gen X are there laying the foundations for systems to come, because they'll ensure they've dotted every I, crossed every T. So they're doing the groundwork, for lack of a better word. Millennials, on the other hand, I'm kind of thinking we're in the middle. What is that strength? Because for me, I would say Gen X are the culture is still there. And I'm talking in the Tanzanian context.
Yeah.
The values are still there. They've kept grounded, like, me bado in Tanzania.
Yeah.
There are things that I'll conform, I'll do.
Yeah.
After retirement, I'll be happily married. I'm happily married. Yeah. I go to my job. I clock off at 6. And then retirement, I have kids. So they've kept a sense check into this is what a Tanzanian success story looks like.
The foundation of it.
Exactly. And millennials, we've taken that and ran with it into we can do more now. I mean, I can be having many arms as long as it's for a better welfare of the family. As much as you're in the middle and doing this, then Gen Z comes, throws a spanner in the works. And now you're confused about, okay, they're more productive, but where does this fit into the Tanzanian context? Do you feel there's a sense of there'll be not an identity crisis, but lack of the Tanzanian fabric? Because most Gen Zs, as much as they're being productive, I find that they don't have that patriotism, for lack of a better. They want to identify more as an American, somebody with an accent, but they're not very grounded into the normal values. Do you feel that's scary in a way? Because you think of Gen Alpha, if Gen Z are here and they're breaking all rules, what would that look like? Isn't that scary for Gen Alpha then?
I think we need to be real with ourselves. Yani, the way the world is going, itafika point there'll be no countries. There will be no nationality. Let's be real. Where the world is going, things are being misconstrued as we go. Yani, kwa mfano, there's already talk of making it an Africa, yani kuleta all the countries pamoja. Yani, we are already heading there pole. It will take time. So for the Tanzanian community, and I know people will come for me in the comments. Tanzania, as much as bado hatuko pale, I feel that there's this fear of letting go, because we defined ourselves by that template, which is not a bad thing. but it doesn't mean that losing certain things means you've lost your way. Yani, what I mean, a typical Tanzanian story, like you said, is unasoma, unapata kazi, you work hard, you grow your wealth, you retire, right? Tanzania, that is like, yani even kwenye family gatherings, wewe ndo you've made it. Sindio? But this is the same Tanzania where marriages are going down, divorce rate is going up, which means that perfect story tayari imeshavurugwa even before you bring in Gen Z. Think about it. The economy, zamani, that story for retirement was like in your 60s. People are now retiring at 40.
Yeah. True.
Yani, pole pole Tanzania is also changing. Zamani, you needed to speak the language of your tribe. Sindio?
Yeah.
Sasa hivi you just need English, Kiswahili. Yani pole pole tu hivi vitu vitaacha kumata. Yani right now they really matter, but with time hawa Gen Z na Gen Alpha ikifika muda wao, these things will no longer matter. There'll be bigger things at that time. So I think I'm not scared. Personally, I'm not scared. What I'm scared about ni kwa upande wa maadili. Yani, what do I mean? There's an exposure to the world that's also bad. And the digital generation hawajajua how to absorb what's good and filter out what's bad. That right there is what scares me, because they believe the internet is right. The internet can never be wrong. Kwa hiyo if you feed them the wrong things, kuwapotosha ni rahisi zaidi. Yani, for me, my biggest fear iko hapo. Are they able to filter the good from the bad kwenye maadili?
Loosely kept think on their own.
Yes. So I think they should be like a hybrid where what Gen X na Millennial wamejifunza with life experience, wakaja waka find a way kui transfer to Gen Z kwa lugha ambao wanaielewa. And I've seen this happening in the States where Gen Z programs zimefunguliwa, and most of it unfortunately is being championed by the religious groups, where they have like youth communities. They try and instill, training them how to distinguish between right or wrong, blah blah blah, but they're using mifumo ambayo Gen Z wanaipenda. They're using rap. So there's a lot of gospel rap. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
It's booming. Why do you think they're doing that? Because wanajua hii ndo lugha ambao hawa watatusikiliza. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of self-help books na nini. Yani, there are people who are trying to maintain that, because everything else can change. Lakini maadili, the basics, be kind, be respectful, and respect ya saivi sio kama ile ya Gen X. Gen X respect was, if I'm older than you,
automatically
you should respect me. To a Gen Z, respect is earned. Mimi siwezi nikakuheshimu wewe wakati kila siku unakuja nyumbani umelewa, unatukana, unaanguka kwenye floor, mama anakupeka chumbani. Na kuheshimu. And how do I respect you? How can I respect you wakati I know behind the scenes you're an evil person? Yani, Gen Z are here to question the things that we never voiced. And that's why we are scared of them, because they have the guts to question. But they don't know where to stop. Hiyo ndo shida. Yani, too much of anything is harmful. Too much of freedom pia ina shida yake. Kwa hiyo it's like, my biggest fear ni hapo. How to filter the good and the bad, and how to know where to draw the line. I feel like Millennials, Gen X, kurudi nyuma, we knew this is where you draw the line.
Goes on.
For example, I've heard Gen Z's talk back to the CEO, and I'm looking at them like, bruh, I know you're frustrated, but that is not how you talk to a CEO. Kuna consequences. They don't understand the concept of consequences to the extent that they should. Yani they're so hell bent on making a point. And it affects them because ukishapoteza kazi kwa mfano, what next? Sawa, you go and be a content creator na nini. Is that enough to build your generational wealth for you and your family? Those are the things I feel like need to be instilled on them, but not 100% scared for Tanzanian society because of them. But again, that's my viewpoint. Kuna mtu anaweza kaiangalia differently.
I'm coming from an angle whereby how's the future of the country looking like? Because ideally that's the responsibility that lies in the generation. Like right now, I would say it's a mix of millennials but heavily Gen Z. What I would say, you're looking at generations to come. And that comes with a clash on when their thought process or their thinking compass is very different from the systems in place, from the governments. There'll always be a clash. Now you wonder on how Gen Alpha will be borrowing from the next people. You get what I'm saying? Like, what's that one thing that you can say across the generations will influence the future of Tanzanians? Because we have this Gen Z, very bold, but they don't know where to stop again. So you have a disrupted workplace, and most of them quitting, that's an honest truth, quitting to start their own things with no clear roadmap. But I'm free, I can do my own stuff, you don't lay the rules. Lakini nobody wants a 9 to 5 to build the country. Like, for lack of a better, people are like, hiyo watajua wenyewe. So you're like, do you feel, which generation do you feel is heavily gonna influence the country?
I think at the moment where we are in Saivi, the heavy responsibility sits with millennials. Hawa Gen Zs wana hiyo guts na hiyo boldness, but it's also cushioned by how the millennials handle them. Ngoja nikupe example. Gen Z wa mikoani na Gen Z wa Dar es Salaam hawawazi the same way, even though they were born around the same kipindi. So I feel like bado ile damage haitakuwa kubwa kama tunavyodhani. Yani our exposure to Gen Z's negative side is heavily urban. You get where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Kuna Gen Z's wako kule kijijini ambao hata hawajui smartphone ni nini, bado wanaendeleza ile maadili, yani I feel like it looks like there's fire,
but from a small group
it's from a small section. Yani there's a bigger part of Tanzania which is not the urban Gen Z that is still following maadili mpaka leo.
That makes them Gen Z with the Gen X mentality.
Yani that's why when I started I said I was born into the millennial era, but I identify. Yani there's a way we put, yani tunaweka maana kubwa sana kwenye hizi classes of generation, but they really mean nothing.
It's a mentality.
It's a mindset. Kumbuka mtu aliyekaa kijijini maisha yake yote probably hata ajui yeye ni Gen Z. Ajui, yeah. Even when we are doing our marketing strategies na nini, and we are there presenting Gen Z, millennial, we are to some extent tunakosea, because ukienda kule kijijini hajui yeye ni Gen Z. Yeye anajua mimi ni Makida, I live in this house, I wake up in the morning, I go to the farm.
My dream is to go to Da.
My dream is
it might not
even be Da. My dream is to make sure whatever I reap inauzika, I have a meal, I am good. Yani a huge percentage of our population, hata ukiangalia the statistics, population is more than 60 million people.
Yeah, seeing is 67 right now.
Access to internet is like half of that, which means there's a whole 30 million people who have zero access to internet. Because they are not influenced the way we are thinking. Now, out of these 30 million ambao they are accessing the internet, wangapi ni Gen Z? It's a small percentage.
Really? Because Tanzania is a very...
The median age is 17. But kwenye access to the internet
wachache
wengi.
zaidi.
Yeah, because remember, to access the internet you actually have to be able to own
a smartphone.
blah blah blah. What is the age that most of these kids are given devices? It's in their teenage years.
Yeah.
Sindio? So it's gonna take time for that impact to be so huge in Tanzania mpaka we are fearing. And probably it might not even happen. That what we are fearing might never happen. What I think will happen is the urbanization itaongezeka because Gen Z atataka kuwaza yule Gen Z mwenzangu ambaye yuko Kigoma ambaye ana make money from agriculture. How do I simplify the process of them making money? Ata come up na agriculture app or something, sindio? Itaenda itambenefit Gen Z wa kule, yule naye atapata exposure. So it will actually be a positive transition to some extent. The negative impact might land on the urban areas sana sana. And even that boils down to wewe kama Makida. In your upbringing, were there consequences when you did something wrong?
Of course.
If they were, then we are safe. The few that we've been exposed to ni wale ambao wakirudi nyumbani hata mzazi wake anashindwa kumwongelesha. So I don't think it's that big of a problem yet. It has potential, but bado sana.
So there's room for traditional values and modern thinking to coexist. And I think that's where the balance is. Do you feel in leadership roles, in government positions, there should be a larger representation or a larger balance of the generations to create a more, because we know right now it's heavily Gen X.
The government,
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you feel there is value in making that a 50-50 or bringing millennials and Gen Z into there? It would help with bringing, I think there's room to drive more innovation, government. I think there's room to challenge thinking. Unfortunately, it's not easy to get into those places. Do you think there's value in looking at it from a perspective, maybe there's a mandate that the youth have got to be at a certain percentage? And will that work positively?
Yeah, I think hata ukiangalia our neighbors, Kenya actually Kenya is a good example. The Gen Zs are so powerful to a point where they start a hashtag on Twitter and the government reacts. That's the power of Gen Z. They know for a fact that they have a voice in a platform that can reach many people at a shorter time. So wakiwa exposed and aware of what's going on in the political scene, and if they actually care enough about it, they will bring that change. Whether it will happen organically, I'm not sure, because ata Kenya, as much as the Gen Z movement may force changes, it's not been an easy route. It's actually been a very tough and to some extent violent route. I think there's a positive side in including the younger audiences kwenye government, lakini mifumo itabidi ibadilike sana. Because right now, for you to work in government, you need to be of a certain age, you need to, then kuna criteria nyingi. It's not that easy to nanili. Zamani, they used to allow people to stream into what's being discussed bungeni and opinions were being, but sasa hivi kuna this overall fear of even doing that. So the Gen Zs who are very opinionated hapa Tanzania, I don't think they are as politically informed as they should be for that change to happen. Does that make sense? Yani,
yes.
They have the power, lakini hawajaji educate, and I honestly think they don't care. I don't think they care as much about the politics in this country as they should.
Anything to do apart from entertainment, it feels people are intentionally not having an interest to dive into current affairs, politics. Doesn't mean kwamba politics you should go, it's all about activism. But I think information is power.
Yeah. So
Understanding
like
is
even
power.
the innovations, they're I think the private corporates ndo sana sana ndo wanaleta hiyo change. Kwa
Yeah.
mfano we've seen Vodacom Foundation wana embrace hichi kitu. We've seen companies that are trying to grow STEM, you know,
Yes.
because a lot of
Diageo
these
also has a
innovations,
STEM
Diageo has a
leg to
STEM.
it, yeah.
A lot of the people who are applying pale ni the youth, and they are becoming game changers. Sasa hivi ukiangalia kwenye private sector, a lot of the especially kwenye STEM, yani like engineering, wengi ni vijana. So at least it's happening on the private side.
And climate,
and you know, climate change,
I've
sustainability.
seen a lot of youth
A
in
lot of
Tanzania
youth are
have
doing
gotten, but
things.
people don't know.
Now that's the problem.
Yeah.
The scale of awareness bado ni ndogo, but it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah.
So I think the government should play a role in raising awareness about it. Maybe what can happen is, instead of them being part of the government, maybe the government can open forums where they can participate to start with. Because having them in the government might take time, but maybe they can be open to forums where the youth are invited to present. Unajua, unakuja una present your thoughts, your proposals, your nini. They should be open to funding. There's a lot of good ideas out there. It shouldn't just be the private sector. I believe kuna some budgets that can be set aside za ku-empower these innovative thinkers. So I think
Embedu CRDB has something
vitu kama
digital.
Most of the examples you are seeing
Private.
ni private.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest responsibility of government is to sort of learn from what private is doing, because they have the power to make it more long term.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think also it's important that even collectively as a society, whether it's content creators, whether it's private with these platforms, to tell these stories for youths who are making a change. I feel people are heavy on entertainment, which is a good thing, and it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But there are people who are really changing and achieving a lot of stuff. You look into biodiversity, you look into stuff like STEM, but they're not celebrated.
Yeah.
And these are boys and girls in their early 20s even. So I feel like it's good we tell those stories so that inspiration comes from a different angle across the generations. So yeah, it's a good thing. Now something lighthearted. What have you ever had a moment a generation where a generational difference really shocked you? Like a moment whereby anything happened, like you were like, wait, what? You got a shock.
What? Hapa Tanzania?
It can be even
anywhere.
Anywhere.
I think when it comes to I've already given an example in terms of innovation and simplifying stuff.
Yeah.
And to keep it lighthearted, tuje kwenye relationships. Unajua sisi Millennials, Gen X tumekulia kwenye ile mindset ya kwamba relationship ni man woman meet, they fall in love, they build a relationship, blah blah blah.
Yes.
Get married, kids. I had a conversation with a Gen Z, and they told me something. It didn't shock me, but it kind of made it disturbed me because it was so against what I believed in. But then at the same time, they were making sense. Unajua our Gen Z, one thing I'll say, ukiwa unaongea nao, yani they make sense bala. And then when they leave the room and you're alone, you're like,
what was that?
Nilimuuliza, very simple question. Are you single? And they're like, that's not a priority for me right now. And I was like,
What does
but
that
what does that
mean?
like you didn't even answer my question. And they're like, they told me, Tracy, the problem is you are focused on identifying me and my relationship status by pegging it to someone else. I'm on a journey of forgive me, I'm laughing like Kini.
You can see I'm having what the hell is that?
Alisema they are on a journey of self discovery and self gratification. Yani, they basically say they don't want to identify through a status that's pegged on someone else. Yani, like whether they're single, they're in a relationship, it should not matter. So I was like, hold up, what does that mean really? And they're like, think about it. Like, what do you get in a relationship that's such a big deal? that was my reaction. I was like, what? Like, there's a lot of positives to being in a relationship. And they're like, can you tell me? So I started listing them. You have somebody whom you can run things through, mnaweza mkasapotiana. There's the emotional side. You can, and with time you can build a family together, you can invest, grow, blah blah blah. And I was listing all the things like a typical millennial. And then they asked me, so you're telling me you can't do all those things on your own? That was the moment. That right there was like, they're like, think about it. You said you need somebody to confide in, right? You can do that online right now. You can go and see a therapist. You said you need to build a family. You can have children without even sleeping with a man right now. So you said you want to grow generational wealth. What generation? Did they tell you they want your wealth? Yeah! Yani, they unpack things and it's so against your fabric of as a person.
And it's triggering because they're making sense, but you're so triggered.
But then I was so triggered and they were so calm talking and looking at me like duh. And by the time they were done, they walked away and I was so confused. I've never been so confused in my life. Because they even told me like they're not even sure if they like men or women. Like all the things that I had as a checklist. Hana,
unpack that like you realize, oh,
like keep your list. And then I was like, hey, so what kind of life are they looking to live? And for them it's about self. They are so focused on what they call authenticity, your true self. Are you being your true self? Are you
living in your truth?
And that's why they believe everyone has a vibe. And like if you have a bad vibe, we can't chill together. Because they're driven by this mindset. Yeah, it's very, if ingekuwa ni books, I would say they're all like Shakespeare's in their head. Yani anaweza akakwambia kitu we mwenyewe ukielewi, ila yeye ameelewa. Na akimwambia mwenzake wanaangaliana like right.
Yeah, right. You get me. You get me, like totally.
So to answer your question, I think that's one of the most, not shocking but disturbing conversations I've had with a Gen Z. Their view of life, it's haieleweki.
Very,
but
very confusing. Whew, that was a heavy one. I think for me it's along those lines also. I don't think I have a problem with the LGBTQ community. Whether I believe in it, that's a different story. I have you're on your lane, I'm on my lane. Good. I have
that's a very millennial answer.
Lanes. So I don't have, I think in redefining family and what that looks like and the pushing that agenda. That's what's very disturbing to me.
In what
like
way?
how they would support in a male and a male being given power of adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this agenda is so, why shouldn't they? It's a family. And then I feel a child is a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when they're born, they know nothing about this world. They will conform to what
Is
is
exposed to them.
exposed to them.
Yeah.
So for me, what's very triggering was the way most of Gen Z are pushing that agenda into, they have the right for a male and a male to have a child, a female and a female to adopt a child, because they feel the child is not being given a chance.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't discovered themselves. So for me, I'm like, it's only the matter of time before this distills into an African context, because we see it in the global context. People have this power, celebrities having this power, and then it's distilling now and it's becoming common. So for me, and having a child, I'll be like, imagine if my child was adopted. You're forcing the identity, the gender identity on them. So like you're distorting the reality. But for me, it was a Gen Z telling me, what reality? This is the reality. So it was a clash of values, whereby it's very triggering for me when they instill their values that ethically, or I deem not correct, especially to a child, because I feel there'll be so much confusion on this child, because what do I identify? I've grown up, it's a male and a male. Like, that's all I know. But I feel like they would give them a chance. When they're of age, they choose what they identify as. That's another story. So for me, stories like that and seeing that debate on a local context always stirs me off. And I'm like, don't I have logic, or don't you have logic? What's happening here? I feel they're very opinionated.
I think everyone
Honest.
is.
Exactly.
Everyone is very opinionated. And using the same example you've given, have you thought about it in the other side? A child being born into a family that has man woman, and they don't believe in that, but they were forced to grow up in that.
But
It's the same
them
thing.
not believing is when they're of age. When they choose not to believe in it, you've given them a chance. Like, they don't believe it, then they choose,
Okay, let me rephrase my question. What if the reality was man man, and then Gen Z is saying it should be man woman? Would you feel the same?
But that would have been a debate with God now.
But that's my point. I think you're arguing from a point where the norm has already been defined for you, and that's why anything other than that becomes questionable. Yani, if we grew up in a society where the norm was man, woman, woman, we would be discussing something else today.
True.
So I think what the Gen Z was telling you ni kwamba what reality, akimaanisha kwamba where the world is heading, hiyo reality yako wewe haita exist.
But you
na
see,
yeye kwake ndo reality yake.
And that's my problem. It's like there is no moral compass.
But for them,
there
that's
is no
a moral
You see, I get like, you've got to have, I feel like you've got to have a moral compass, or whatever that looks like. And you choose, does this work for me? It's like you might be born a Christian, and to see this doesn't work, you become a Muslim when you're 18, when you're 20. Good for you. You are of age enough to choose what you felt is. Bringing a child into the context and giving them like adapting, it's very confusing, because then you are painting their reality for them. And I know, again, it goes back to the same, what moral compass, what reality. So I think for me, it's just like the way people identify as, I identify as I'm deaf, I identify as I'm blind.
Should I tell you something I saw shocking? Sorry, there's a group of people that identify as animals. If you want to know how confusing the world is, like, I identify as a cat. Now uniambi kitu.
Exactly.
So I don't think it's a Gen Z problem. I think it's a society is changing problem. It's just that Gen Z wamepewa a bigger exposure, and you can't blame them. Sasa hivi kila movie Netflix inaleta hiyo agenda. Akiingia mtandaoni hiyo agenda
Anakutana
ipo.
nayo.
Akienda shuleni inadiskasiwa. Yani the exposure they have now na exposure yako kipindi kile kama yeye, very different. So I don't blame them for accepting it quicker, because it's the norm for them. Yani kama nilivyoanza, they were exposed to the digital world from day one. Kwa hiyo ndo maana nisema my biggest fear is hii exposure. Hawajui bado how to filter what's good, what's bad, yani wana absorb. And then they believe that kila kitu mtandaoni kiko sahihi. And that's why sasa hivi there are things like parental control.
Yes.
There are things like policy ya data where
age restriction.
Yes, kuna hiyo ya age restriction, afu kuna nyingine where like unajua kuna these culprits who try and steal information about your children online.
Yes.
And then they go and con men, catfish.
Yeah, catfish.
This catfish thing. Gen Z are the most vulnerable because wamekulia in a world where the internet is real life for them. Ushai kuona Gen Z anaambiwa go make friends, anakuambia I have enough friends. Anamaanisha wale wa mtandaoni. And not just social media. Kwa mfano Gen Z boys wanaocheza PlayStation.
Yes.
Au hizi games za kustream. A lot of them believe the people they stream with online are their friends.
Yeah.
And it makes them vulnerable to watu wenye nia mbaya. Kwa mfano sasa hivi zamani the issue was cyberbullying. Sasa hivi the biggest issue is what I'm talking about, catfishing. Where mwanao ana chat na mtu kila siku na anaamini kweli huyu ni mtu ambaye ninaongea naye yuko hivi is my fellow Gen Z. For example, if it's a teenager, imagine a 13-year-old confiding to this person online about critical things, and this person is answering back and giving them information about yeye anaiabsorb, anaiamini.
Because a 40-year-old somewhere pretending to
you
be
get my point.
Somebody
who has very bad intentions, lakini anamfeed huyu mtoto. Wewe unategemea huyu mtoto atakuwaje? Yani that's why I said for me my biggest fear for the younger generations, Gen Z na wanaofuata, ni hii exposure to mitandao and instant gratification. Because right now ukimnyima hela anaingia OnlyFans, anapiga picha 2-3, anapata 10 times the money they were asking.
Yeah.
Siku hizi yani tena girls, like if you want to make money you just take pictures of your feet, you have $2,000. Doesn't that scare you?
Extremely. Yeah, it triggers me to like, my core.
For me the biggest issue that I think we are facing ni hiyo. And because they believe it's their reality, ata argue na sisi kwamba your reality is not my reality. And that's the problem. Like, and it goes down mpaka hawa wa Gen Alpha, reality yao na ya kwetu. Hata cartoons. Have you seen the cartoons right now?
When you keep those parental guides, you're like, what is happening?
Agendas zinakuwa pushed pale. So back to your experience ulio share, I think shida kubwa ni hiyo. The information, they're being overloaded. Alafu sasa hivi attention span imepungua. So even when you want to get through to them. In fact, there's another experience I've had. Have you ever talked to a Gen Z anakuangalia lakini hakusikilizi na anajibu?
Yes, you feel like they're zoned out.
Yes.
But they answer to what you've been saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because attention span yake ni as long as a TikTok video. Like 15 seconds, I'm out. So you have to find a way to make your point in their world. Yani, if you're gonna have a talk with them in 15 seconds,
you've landed it.
You've landed your point. Or if you feel like talking to them one-on-one is not working, send them to a podcast that they might watch. Or like even we need to change the way we
approach our conversations with them.
Yeah.
Nice. This has been very interesting. You can clearly see we want to keep it going.
Yeah.
There's so many things to learn. I can't wait to see you guys in the comments with your inputs, your
And
thoughts.
don't come for us.
Don't come for us. Jamani, what do you guys think? This has been an interesting episode. I would like to continue, but yeah, we gotta do what we gotta do. One last thing, Tracy, what will be your parting notes? Anything?
Around the topic ya leo.
Yes, around hii topic ya leo, a message to any generation, not to all of them.
Not all of
Anything, a closing remark.
I think for me the closing remark would be let's not be so fixated on generations. Yani, let's look at what we can pick. For me, I think inabidi tutengeneze kama kachumbari fulani where you take the good from Gen X, the good from Millennial, the good from Gen Z, and then your kachumbari, you serve it back. Because what that does is ile clash inapotea, na pia it creates a hybrid generation. Like in Alpha, a perfect world.
Good luck. Generation Alpha, good luck.
In a perfect world, the generation ni moja na ina mix ya all the positives za miaka iliyopita. I think if over fixation so nzuri, like this whole I'm a millennial, I'm a Gen Z, I'm a Gen X, and then Gen Alpha looking at all of us like, oh my god, you guys are so irrelevant. I think hiyo ndo ninge discourage. I think let's focus on creating like a hybrid mindset.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And with that, just when you said we break these generations. Wow.
Peace out.
And with that, it brings us to the end of our episode. I hope you enjoyed. Do not forget to subscribe. On social media, you can find us on YouTube, btspodcasttz, on Instagram, btspodcasttz, on Facebook and on TikTok, btspodcasttz. Bye!